Maryland football missed a major opportunity against number one Oregon.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. And also make sure you guys go check out Inside Black and Gold. They have plenty of Terps news, so make sure you guys go over to insideblackandgold.net for all your latest Terps news. I thought Maryland football missed a major opportunity on Saturday to keep the game close against Oregon. I'm not saying we missed an opportunity to necessarily win, but we missed an opportunity to potentially make it a game. Oregon wanted to give us that game. Oregon did not come to play. It was a letdown spot for Oregon, and they didn't play well. If I was an Oregon fan, I wouldn't be feeling good about that win against Maryland. Now, they still won 39-18, but if you look at what the spread was 24 points. So Maryland does technically cover the spread and plays a little bit better than what people probably thought, just because in terms of the numbers and in terms of the points. But people expect it to be about a 20-point game, so I don't really want to say that. But I do want to say that Maryland absolutely missed an opportunity to make it an interesting game against Oregon. Oregon didn't play well. I don't know how else to say it. They didn't play well, and they gave Maryland so many different opportunities to stay in that game. And I know you might look at it as a 20-point game and say, did they really have any opportunities to stay in that game? Yes. Maryland had so many different opportunities to stay in that game. It was like written on the walls. Oregon did some things that Maryland needed. Maryland was getting some lucky bounces in times, but they just didn't take advantage of it. Maryland easily could have stayed in that game. And my thing is, when you stay in the game as an underdog, that's all you have to do. That's how you win these types of games. That's how you pull off these upset, is just staying in the game till the final whistle, till the fourth quarter. Make them take 3 kneels with only being up 3 points or 7 points. I'm not saying Maryland would have won, but I'm just saying if you want to start having real opportunities to win games like this, you got to find a way to stay in these games. You just do. And not every day you're going to get that opportunity because, let's be honest, Oregon's more talented than us. Just about every position on the football field you look at, Oregon's better than us. They have a Heisman candidate at quarterback. They have a really solid running game. They have one of the better offensive lines in the Big Ten. They have a really solid group of receivers. Even without Tez Johnson, they have a top-end defense that's been playing at a really high level. So when Oregon gives you opportunities to stay in the game, when the number one team in the country gives you opportunities to stay in the game, if you ever want to have a chance at winning a game like this, you have to, one of these times, take advantage of that. And so I thought that there was so many different opportunities. I'm going to point to some, but there were so many different chances that if Maryland just did what we said before the game, win the turnover battle, Billy Edwards not turning over the ball, and then take advantage of Oregon's missed opportunities that I didn't even expect to happen. I just said Maryland's got to win the turnover battle, probably like by 2 or 3. But Oregon was giving Maryland plenty of chances to stay in the game. There was their corner, Dalen Austin, ran into our punter on a 4th and 8, giving the Terps another chance. Whenever you run into the punter, I don't know, when you guys watch as a fan, there's nothing more frustrating than when one of your players, when your defense gets off the field, it's like finally your defense gets a stop, or like, oh my gosh, our defense just got a stop against the number one team in the country and a Heisman candidate. And then the opposite happens and you run to the punter. Luckily, it was vice versa in this situation where the Oregon defense got a stop on us, which is totally expected. And then they ran to a punter and gave Billy Edwards another shot. But we only were able to get 3 points out of that. Those are the chances that you need to probably get 7 points. So that was a huge opportunity that that Maryland missed there. As a fan, there's nothing more frustrating than that. I bet Oregon fans are really mad about that. That gave us a fresh set of downs. That was one opportunity that Oregon gave us that we ended up giving a field goal on. But if he's going to give you another chance, you got to be able to put 7 up on the board. And then 2 drives later, they muffed a punt. And if Maryland's alert enough, there's a real opportunity for the Terps to fall on the ball in that situation. Like, there's absolutely a chance for Maryland to get on top of that ball, to be able to win or to gather the ball near in Oregon's territory right away. You don't have to drive the ball down on their defense. And you're able to score another touchdown. And at that point in the game was close. At that point in the game. So that was another opportunity Maryland had to stay in the game. Like, through the first quarter is only 3-7. Like, they had an opportunities to stay in the game at that point. At half, it was what, 10-21 for the Terps. Terps absolutely had a chance to make that about a tie game going into half. And from that point on, you just don't know what happens. So Oregon gave you a muff punt, but Maryland couldn't get on it. They gave you a roughing the punter, but Maryland took advantage of it and only settled for 3. And that wasn't even it. Billy Edwards was sacked on a second down. And it would have been a 3rd and long, and you could have pretty much booked us off the field. But we got a face mask penalty, and that was the theme of the game. Oregon finished with a ton of penalties. They finished with 12 penalties, costing them almost 100 yards, which was the high on the season mark. So if you would have said coming into the game, I would have said, this is a recipe to win. You got to get some things to go your way. Like, you got to get some roughing the passers or roughing the punters, and some penalties, and Oregon having almost 100 penalty yards. But Maryland just wasn't able to take advantage of it. And there was other things. Dillon Gabriel didn't necessarily look super sharp against us, to be completely honest. We caught them over on a bad day. Like, Dillon Gabriel threw for only 183 yards. If you would have said that he only threw for 183 yards, I would have been like, I wouldn't have said Maryland won the game necessarily, but I would have been like, we had a much better chance than before. But here was a big reason why Maryland just wasn't able to take advantage of it. And a big reason why was because I thought of Billy Edwards. You can't turn over the ball twice. You couldn't do it. I said we were going to have 0 turnovers to stay in that game. And when you turn over the ball twice, it balances some of those opportunities that Oregon gave you. And then it gives it right back to Oregon. And so I think Maryland absolutely missed an opportunity against the number 1 team in the country. I want to make it clear. I'm not saying we necessarily missed an opportunity to win, but you can't tell me we weren't going to be in that game. We could have easily been in that game. It reminded me, remember when we played Michigan last year? I think it was the second to last game of the season. Like, that was a game that I thought this game could have ended up being like, where we have the number 1 team in the country. I don't know if Michigan was number 1. I forget if they were number 1 at that time when we played them last year. I think they were like 3. They were like top 4 for sure. I think they played Ohio. I think they were into the Ohio State game because they always play Ohio State last. But I think this Oregon game could have been like that Michigan game where we keep it close throughout the game, and we had every opportunity to be able to win the game. And I couldn't have been that mad at the end of that Michigan game because Maryland competed. They took advantage of the opportunities Michigan gave them. But that was less about Michigan giving us the game. That was more about Maryland was able to take it a little bit from Michigan. This is more about the Terps. Oregon gave you the game, and you just didn't take advantage of it. I'm not saying necessarily to win, but to have them on their toes in the fourth quarter, and that's how you start beating some of these teams. It's having them on their toes. That's how these upsets happen. It's not like, oh, you just blow them out. Like, that's not how it works. It's you keep it close, and then you make a play in the fourth quarter, either an interception, a big passing game, a big run, a big sack. You make a play, and all of a sudden, everything changes. And the pressure shifts to Oregon, and Maryland's playing loose with nothing to lose. And Maryland absolutely had the opportunity to do that on Saturday. Oregon gave them every opportunity to be able to do that, but we just weren't able to take advantage of. We didn't get blown out maybe as bad as I thought we were going to, but Maryland had missed a chance to really make this a close game in what my opinion of this is. I'm curious what you guys think about that. Do you guys think that we had a chance to make that game close? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I think we got to start thinking about MJ Morris, right? I'll talk about that after this ad from FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sports App gives you everything you need to place your live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-plays, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Make sure you guys go over to FanDuel. There's plenty to bet on FanDuel. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. It's college basketball season, college football. The NBA is in the full swing. The NFL is in the full swing. There's a game tonight. And if you want to bet on these sports, and there's plenty of good sports to bet on, you have to get on FanDuel. This is the best time of year if you want to bet on sports. So make sure you guys head over to FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I'm starting to think that Billy Edwards, we have to bench him. We have to, I'm starting to think. I don't think he necessarily played horrible on Saturday, but that's been the theme over these last couple weeks with Billy Edwards. His production has really dropped off. He started off in the year, and I was like, this guy's pretty solid. I didn't think he was anything like insane. I didn't think he was anything special, but I was thinking he's pretty solid right now. But the more and more I watch, the more and more I look at it, I just think you have to think about giving MJ Morris an opportunity to end the year, especially these next two games are really important. But if you lose one of them, season's basically over. You can't make a bowl game anymore. So if you lose next week to Rutgers, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying that will happen. I think there's no reason MJ Morris doesn't start the rest of the season. We've seen what we have in Billy Edwards. We have a good idea of what it is. It's a solid quarterback. It's probably, I would say, in the Big Ten, somewhere in that middle-ish, probably middle-ish, probably even out to about a middle-ish Big Ten quarterback, I would say, which isn't anything crazy, which isn't anything special. It's just a bad either. It's something that I think he's a guy that, like, if your team's playing well and everything's going well, he can look really good. If your offensive coordinator's calling the right stuff, if you have good receivers, he can look like a good quarterback. But he's not a guy to elevate us. And right now, we need a guy to elevate us. And I'm not saying MJ Morris is definitely going to do that, but I think he should get the opportunity, because I think that with our current team, with no run game, with a bad offensive line, and we have good receivers, that's about it. Our receivers usually perform. But I think you have to consider switching, because you need a guy that can kind of elevate us from some of that poor stuff going on. And I just think when I watch Billy Edwards, he just didn't have a good game. It was probably one of his worst games. Just completed 50% of his passes, which is below what he's been all year as a quarterback. And he had 2 interceptions in the game. And I just think the turnovers are starting to kill us. He started off the season like not turning over the ball nearly as much as what he's doing now. And now it's starting to be like, he's turning over the ball a lot. Like when you look back at numbers, remember last week against Minnesota, 2 interceptions. Remember, I think USC, even though he ended up having a pretty good game, still had an interception in that game. Northwestern, an interception. Indiana, he had 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. So that's when he was starting to play less mistake-free ball. If you just look at his numbers, he's just dropped off. He's just gotten worse. Where earlier on in the season, he had a really good touchdown interception ratio, like against Virginia. Had 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Michigan State, 2 touchdowns, 1 interceptions. Indiana, even though we lost, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And then when we started to get to this stretch of the Minnesota, Oregon, even back to Northwestern, he's starting to just lose that. And I'm saying he just didn't look great against Oregon. He threw for 206, but he had 44 attempts. And when you have 44 attempts, you got to get to 250? Hopefully, you got to get somewhere with that. And I think he had a ton of attempts. And I know he's playing the Oregon defense, but I'm just starting to say, why not play MJ Morse? Why not? Especially if you lose next game against Rutgers, then I think there's no reason not to play. It wouldn't make sense not to play MJ Morse. Even if Billy Edwards looks good next week, I still think if you lose to Rutgers next week, I still think it makes sense because you're just not going to see MJ Morse. Surely he'll transfer if he doesn't get any. He'll probably transfer no matter what. If you guys want me to be completely honest, MJ Morse is probably gone after this year. We already lost Cameron Edge, and we potentially could lose MJ Morse. I think there's I would say over 50% chance that we lose MJ Morse, specifically because Malik Washington is coming in, and he's going to be the guy that we look at and go to. But I think that when you look at our team, and the guys coming in, I just don't see where we don't lose MJ Morse. And I think that not playing him at all would ensure that. And he's a guy we definitely won this quarterback room. And I also think we just haven't seen him play this year. And we're not a team that's good. And I've been preaching that. I just don't think it makes sense not to give him a shot to play. I wouldn't understand that. I wouldn't get it. Billy Edwards has cooled off. Billy Edwards hasn't looked good, hasn't looked nearly as accurate. The offense isn't going as well. And I know you just played the number 1 team in the country. And I said it, probably no matter who plays is going to look bad, whether it's MJ or Billy Edwards, either one will probably look bad. That's kind of what I came to. But I think that now that we've seen Billy Edwards play bad the last couple of weeks, I just don't see why you wouldn't. I don't understand not giving MJ Morris an opportunity after bringing him in from NC State. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. And I think that if we lose to Rutgers, I think you're going to see, because I think, to me, Maryland, I guess, still feels – this is how I see it. Maryland still feels Billy Edwards gives them the best chance to win. And I'm not disagreeing. I'm not in the building every day, so I don't completely understand. But I think they also think that they still have a chance to make a bowl game, and that's really important for Maryland football. That's where we are as a program. We want to just make bowl games. And if we win the next 2 games, we can make a bowl game. And they're saying Billy Edwards gives us the best chance to win. Billy Edwards gives us the best chance to win the next 2 games. But if we lose to Rutgers, I think you absolutely have to go to MJ Morris to see what you got before it's gone. And I think it's as simple as that, because Billy Edwards didn't look good against Oregon. I know it's Oregon, number 1 team in the country, in Eugene, on the road. That's a tough place to play. But he just didn't look good. Who showed out? I was actually surprised with some performances. Some people did actually play well against the number 1 team in the country and played a good game. I'll talk about that after this ad from the Gametime app. Have you ever wanted to go to a game at the last minute, like a Maryland Terrapins game, but finding tickets is hard? I've been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Gametime has deals on the tickets right at the start of an event and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last-minute seats and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So I do want to highlight a couple of guys, because I do think there were some players that actually played really well for the Terps. first of all, I want to talk about the secondary because I've been the main one to be on them because they haven't played well this year, and they haven't. They've been pretty bad for a lot of the year. Basically, I feel like every single game I complain about them. I feel like every single game I say this team hasn't played well. This secondary hasn't looked good. Things need to change in the secondary. Something has to happen down there. And we've been giving up big plays in a lot of weeks. And I thought against number 1 Oregon, surely we're going to give up some big plays. Surely we're going to probably not look good. But they were missing their number 1 receiver. But I'm not going to say that, okay, they were missing Tez Johnson, so this team doesn't count. Like, no, Oregon has plenty of other dudes, not just like good players, like dudes in their receiver room that really help them, that really are going to help them this year. Like they still have Holden, that kid, Evan Stewart, really good player. Like they still have a lot of good players in the back end or in the receiver room. And Maryland's back end really did hold up. Like I said earlier, Dylan Gabriel didn't have a crazy game. We kept him under 200 yards. He did have 3 touchdowns, but we were able to keep him honest. 23 of 34 for 183 yards. I'll take that, especially for a defense that's given up a ton of big looks. And so I think that Maryland's secondary really did show up. I thought that Jalen Husky and Dante Trader played well. I thought that overall the secondary just looked a lot better. It helps definitely having Dante back there. He's been up and down in terms of injuries this year. And I think he probably wanted a more consistent health year this year, especially with him trying to push towards the NFL draft and different things like that. But I did think Dante had a really solid type of game overall. So that was good to see for Dante. And Jalen Husky struggled at times this year, and I thought he looked solid. So I did think our secondary played at a pretty high level for the Terps overall. And then I think we have to also continue to highlight Ty Felton. Man, he's playing at a really high level, and he proved against a really good Oregon secondary that he can play with anybody. And I think he's been proving that. He's played in the Big Ten, so it's not like, oh, this guy just came from FCS putting up huge numbers. Like, no, he's played in the Big Ten, but I think against number 1 Oregon, he proved that he was still one of the best players on the field. 7 catches for 72 yards is definitely a really solid performance. Also had Maryland's longest play of the game with a 34-yard reception, which I also thought was an important part of the game. And he also tied DJ Moore's reception, single-season reception record, that he set in 2017, and Ty will certainly break that with 3 games left this season. If he didn't, then something went really, really wrong. But he should break that with 3 games left in the season. And he's really put himself on the map as one of the. I think he has a chance to go in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. He's played like one of the best players in all of college football in that receiver position. And so I thought that he had a really solid game. And I thought overall Maryland's receiving room continues to look really solid. Octavian Smith had another decent day with 5 receptions, 46 yards. Shalik Knotts made a couple plays with 2 receptions for 28 yards. Caden Prather was quiet, to be honest. But I thought that they played. I thought they played pretty well, especially considering that our running room just continues to get absolutely nothing. With Nolan Ray, Roman Hemby, none of those guys can get anything going. So I think that definitely hurt us. But it was good to see the receiver room. And Octavian's been playing well, and he's definitely stepped up to a role that I feel like he hasn't had in the past. So I think that our receiver room and our secondary, those 2 positions looked pretty good against Oregon. And hopefully we can continue doing that for the rest of the season, because that would be important. I think the receiver room's done it all season. The corner room hasn't done it very much at all this season. So it's kind of like opposites. So what we're used to in the receiver room playing well and what we're absolutely not used to with the corner room. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked On Terps.